Well, hello everybody out there in Simple Church land. I have a little bit of an interesting video for us as we journey through these summer months. So this past June, Simple Church Council and leaders went away on a day-long retreat just north of Squamish. We spent the day there at the Queen of Peace Monastery, which was and is a really beautiful Dominican monastery. It was overlooking the Squamish Valley, just a beautiful setting. And we joined the nuns there, about 12 of them, I believe, twice throughout the day to pray and to worship with them, while also engaging in our own times of teaching and worship together. It was a really wonderful day away. At the end of the day, we turned our attention just to think about our own simple churches. I wanted to provide the leaders with a current picture of our network while also identifying what I really see as some points for us to reflect upon in the coming months. Some of these things I might call points of genuine concern, while others are more just kind of wonderings, and even concerns may be too strong of a word. What I want to do in this video is I'd like to provide for everyone else what I shared with the leaders on that day. And in so doing, my hope is just to plant some seeds for reflection in all of us. And then maybe as we journey into the fall in late August or in September, perhaps we can pick up these things again and discuss, what our response might be or what shoots might be arising in our own hearts as we think about these things. For now, though, as you watch this, I just simply ask two things of you. First of all, that you would prayerfully reflect upon what is being said on our churches and on your church in particular. And secondly, if you have thoughts to share with me or ideas that arise out of you as you listen to this, I just love to hear how the Spirit might be prompting you and encouraging you and causing you to think about how you might respond or we might respond to some of these things. So we're going to begin just by getting kind of a general lay of the land of our simple churches. Some of this might be interesting for you to hear. And then we'll finish off with those points of reflection or concern that I might have, wonderings that I have. So let's just begin then with some kind of general data about our churches. Currently, we have 9 simple churches representing about 140 regular attendees. That's adults and children combined together. And the churches are located in quite a wide area in Surrey, in Vancouver, in North Vancouver, in Squamish, and now even up in Prince George. Well, of those 140 attendees, we have 27 that are official members, and 6 of these members are serving our churches right now on our church council. Let's think a little bit about our Citywide. Citywide is the regional worship gathering where all of our churches, as you likely know, come together once a month for worship and these kind of things. Now, engagement in this event has really quite widely varied, especially since coming out of COVID. And there really seems to be no real predictability from month to month who's attending or who isn't. Our largest attendance this past year was about 60 people. And our lowest a couple of months back was 18. This past year, we also didn't really have consistent worship leading, though even having said that, so many thanks go out to Jason and Ben and Mia from our Surrey church for the times that they did lead us. In fact, actually the last Citywide that we had in June, Jason, who provides a fair bit of the organizational leadership, invited 2 of his friends from another church to help him and to lead us, which was a real gift to our community. So thanks again to you, Jason, for your help with all of that. One point I do note, though, is that Citywide is not being actively attended by new Simple Church people. And I think also I'm observing that the event is harder to engage with as we become more regionally diverse. Places like Squamish and Prince George make for obviously a bit more of a logistical challenge. And I'm wondering these days, how do we respond to that as we become less focused on just the Metro Vancouver area? I jump ahead now to the videos that we've been making, the They Devoted Themselves video. This is a series, as you likely know, that we started about 2 years ago to support this teaching piece of our home gatherings, which was always a little bit of a challenge in our church, is what we do with teachings. Well, it's been really wonderful to watch the uptake on this. The videos have an average view rate of about 80 to 125 views, with when you watch the analytics, there's a high percentage of these videos that are actually being viewed, which means that people are watching the videos and not just kind of clicking, watching the first 20 seconds and then moving on. So that's encouraging. Interestingly, though, they're also now being actively used by churches that are beyond just our own network. I know of people in Kelowna, in Calgary, in Southern Ontario, and interestingly, even in Mexico City, that people are using these videos. And there are also some traditional churches that do not currently have teaching pastors that are using them. And that was a surprising thing to me, but also encouraging to see. The teachings are mainly supported by our church general fund. Our parent denomination, the Christian Missionary Alliance, has given $2,500 each of the past 2 seasons, which we're really grateful for. And as you likely know, I've tried in both of the last few years to generate more income in June, especially through a little bit of internal fundraising campaign, but it really hasn't resulted in much support. So most of these videos are being supported then through our general fund. Thinking about the retreat that we held. Well, this last year was our first retreat since COVID. And we had 47 attendees, and many of these were actually new people, including many members. Shout out to all of you that came from Squamish, and thank you so much for joining in on this. And as always, it was a wonderful and is a really wonderful chance to be together for a prolonged period of time. So thanks to everybody that attended. And for those that didn't or that have never been before, I just want to encourage you, put it on your calendar now. It's going to be again this coming November, and be really good to spend a weekend away with many new people as well. Let's turn now to think about finances. Since we began Simple Churches, we have had this desire instilled within us, a value where we want to be people that choose to live simply. That's part of where our name comes from. Simply individually and also corporately, so that then we can have more to give away, especially in our care for the poor and the needy that are around us. Now, individually, this is actually quite hard to monitor. They ask the question, are we together, are people living simply in order that they have more to give away? Well, are you? Does everyone give to Simple Churches or to other organizations that are meaningfully caring for the needy around them? The truth is, and actually, as your pastor, I don't really know the answer to these questions. Since we began Simple Churches in 2006, I have maintained a personal policy where I have no direct knowledge of what anyone gives in our churches. Now, why do I do this? I do this because I know the power of money over a person's heart. I know that it has the ability to bias people toward those who have money, or in this case, towards those that might be giving to our churches. And as the pastor of Simple Churches, I don't want to be guilty of favoring one person or a particular group of people over against another person based upon how they give. I just don't want to go down that road. So quite truly and honestly, I don't know how you give as individuals. I don't know if you are living out this value on an individual level, but you do. You know this. And I guess I can just say, I really hope that you are. And if you are not living this way and living in generosity in this way, I would ask that you would live this way. And I believe that in your giving, and in giving to Simple Churches, to add to this, you are also giving to a body that is using its resources and effectively and very faithfully. Which then leads us then to think about how this value is being lived out corporately. Are we, as a Simple Churches, living this value of spending less on ourselves, on staffing and all those kind of things, so that we have more to give away? Well, I can say the answer to that is an unequivocal yes. We have had this goal, never written down, but it's kind of been an internal goal in our churches, to give away 50% of all of our resources received to the care of the poor and the needy in our world, and to the furthering of God's good news. Now, we've not actually met this, but we have come close on occasion. And regarding what it is that we actually spend on ourselves, we have very minimal ministry expenses. And our staffing remains just one half-time worker, that's me, and a very part-time bookkeeper. And then the teachers that we contract for our video series, which is a total of about $10,000. Now you think about that. We have a church of about 140 people in 9 different homes, and we have one part-time pastor and one bookkeeper. I think it's really quite remarkable. And in terms of statistics, I can also share this. And Neto, our treasurer, gave me this information. We have had 25 different givers in 2023. Maybe that's you. Our monthly donations have been about 12,800, which is the largest they've been in quite some time. Our ministry and staffing expenses have totaled about $8,500 a month. And we have so far given away about $1,200 in mission support each month. But we have more in our bank account right now to spread in that way also. Regarding those works that we have been supporting, we have been giving funds to International China Concern, which is an organization that supports disabled children and their families in China. This is an organization we partner with since the very beginning of Simple Churches. We've supported them with finances and people attending China and all the rest of those things. We also continue to give money to our orphan and widow relief work in the Ukraine, which is another ministry that we've supported since the very beginning in 2006. And as many of you also know, Ruth Taves, one of our longtime members, in fact, a founding member of our church, has traveled again there this spring to serve those that are suffering so deeply in the current war there. Her blogs were remarkable and wonderful, and they're all available for you to read on our website. Finally, we also give to a project in the north of British Columbia, the Misty River Project, a church ministry in Hazelton, British Columbia, that serves the Indigenous population there. Now, as for local support, the past few years we've done what we call the Big Give, where we set aside every so often, usually about $2,000 or thereabout for each of our churches to disperse to people that they know. But we do not actually have a common local mission that we support or that we engage with together across our network. And that's something we can come back and think about together a little bit later on in this short video. Finally, regarding open doors and new opportunities that are before us, there are a few things that I think are interesting that I just want to draw your attention to. First of all, as you likely know, we are praying for the Sea to Sky region and hoping there to establish a new regional network that meets in that area and stretches up into the Whistler area. That's born out of our partnership now with the River Church there. Secondly, I am beginning to have early conversations with a leader and a group of people from the Sunshine Coast. Maybe you know people over in the Gibsons area, which I think seems quite hopeful, and we'll pick up that conversation again in September. And finally, we're praying for these people that we love so much, Daniel and Brianna Ryder, as they have moved to Prince George and are dreaming and pioneering something there. And we are seeking God with them for this new thing, as Daniel and Brianna reach out to people, especially those that are living in difficult conditions in Prince George. And so I just ask, would you join me even now in praying for these things that are emerging all around us? Now, with all that background or all that lay of the land for our churches, let's think about these points of wondering or concern that I just want to leave with you. Things that I'd ask that you'd be praying about and talking about. And as I said at the beginning, even if you have thoughts or ideas, I'd love to hear your feedback from me or given back to our council. First thing is I want to talk about baptisms. We have had no baptisms for a number of years now. And most of the baptisms in our churches have come via children growing up in their faith, which I don't want to diminish that. It's a really wonderful thing. We have grown significantly these past number of years, but it seems that most of our growth has come from people who are displaced and finding our church as a church home, which is wonderful. And I also don't want to diminish that. It's not unimportant, it's important. But as we welcome all of these new people, I also think about this issue of baptism, and I would love to see people being baptized through our churches. Now, why do you say is baptism? Why is that important? Because baptism is this one definitive sign of a person's new life in Christ. They have come to see Jesus as Lord and have decided to plant their flag in Him, to be baptized in His name. So it is one of those markers of new life that I think is really critical for a church, even more critical, say, than just numerical growth. What would it mean for us to see new spiritual birth and new baptisms in our church? In a world that is so hostile now to the Christian message and to the church, especially in our area, how might we begin to reach new people, people in need of hope, people that are open to the message of Jesus? And I just ask you to think about that and pray with me about this. It is for me a point of genuine hope and a point of genuine prayer. I think it should be for all of us. Secondly, let's think about citywide again. For many years now, I have actually downplayed somewhat anyways the significance of citywide. Our real focus has been on these home gatherings or simple gatherings, and I think that remains true and where it should be. But that said, I also do have this growing hope that this gathering could become maybe a higher priority for us, that we could see it for what it is, not just necessarily this kind of take or leave event, but more like the whipped cream or the cherry on top of this really wonderful church experience that we have. Something that we can really look forward to coming to, where we get to see old and familiar faces, where we celebrate and worship and communion together, and then we finish it all off with this great meal together. But I also recognize that there is a challenge here too, because as we have become more regionally diverse, as new people not connected with our churches are having a difficult joining in, how do we handle this gathering? And especially a gathering that's located in one location, and I'm thinking about that in regard to the regional diversity. And to be honest, I'm not really sure of the answer to that question. How do we gather together for something like citywide when we're in a much more regionally diverse scenario now? I wonder if you have thoughts about that. And finally, let's just talk about corporate engagement, regional, local corporate engagement. We have justice and mission projects that we engage with internationally. I mentioned them earlier on, like International China Concern or the Ukraine, or China Concern, excuse me, and the Ukraine, which is wonderful. But I'm also thinking about locally. What does it look like that we might engage together locally? Could there be something, for example, that we rally around to support on a more local level? And again, then, what would that look like given our more regional diversity? Perhaps there are ideas that you have that might be a rallying point, that together we can join in as local churches to support things in a more local level. I wonder if you have thoughts about those. So 3 things we are wondering about as we close off this, I guess you might call it a bit of a State of the Union address, or maybe we're more Canadian, let's call it a speech from the throne, although I'm certainly not on a throne and I'm not giving a speech to a throne. You know what I'm saying. Baptisms, let's think about baptisms. Let's think about citywides, and let's think about local engagement or local things that we could join in together with. I wonder what your thoughts might be on each one of those things. And as I say, I would really welcome you. Send me an email or just reach out some way and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to know them. And with that address in place, I bid you then a really happy and restful rest of your summer. Much love to you all.